Welcome to Mother Daughter Earth, and we are thrilled to welcome Ron Mills with us today. And Ron Mills has one of the the East Dallas franchise of Wild Birds Unlimited, and he is a wealth of knowledge about birds, birding, bird feeders, bird food, everything bird related. So, welcome to our podcast,
Well,
Ron.
thank you very much. Pleasure being here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And first of all, why don't you tell us how you got interested in birds and how it turned into your profession? I mean, what's your birding journey been?
Well, yeah, I would say probably more of a retailer than a birder, first of all. So, because I do not say I'm a birder at all. These people who are birders are serious, chase around the world, chase around the country, chase around the city to find a bird. So I am not that person at all.
Okay.
I've been to White Rock Lake birding, many times, but really one birding trip ever. Other stuff is more hiking and then with binoculars. You know what I'm saying? So I see a paraluxia or something down in Big Bend and you're like, whoa, that's cool. But I didn't go birding. I was hiking with friends and they were like, please come on. So how did it start? 18 years ago, I was in the wireless industry. Okay. And I sold products to the wireless companies, specifically amplifiers that go up on the top of towers. Okay. And so the industry was winding down, so to speak, the construction of it. I don't know if you remember PCS versus cellular. Okay. I know you won't. But anyway,
you lost me there, Ron. I have to tell
yeah.
Mom, if it doesn't have a flower attached to it,
I
she's
know
definitely not gonna
exactly.
crack.
So that industry was coming to an end. They, wrote us a check to say, have a nice life. And I was sitting outside with my girlfriend at the time, and we were just thinking of what in the world are we going to do when we grow up, And so she was in the restaurant industry, so we looked at. Or she said she had already looked at the sandwich shops and stuff like that, and I looked across the way there and with adult beverage in hand, and I said, "That's a franchise." And she said, "The fence?" I said, "No, the bird feeders." I said, "My mother bought that stuff at Wild Birds Unlimited in Tyler." And I said, because my aunt and uncle lived there. So she would go visit them from Texarkana. And so she bought all that setup for me. And so from that conversation, 6 months later, we owned this shop.
Oh, wow.
And so she, like I said, she was, but that, so yeah, that was 17 plus years ago now. So we closed on Black Friday, 2003. So 17 and a half years. So
that's awesome. So, but okay, I know you know, obviously a lot about birding and you have met people who identify as birders, I guess.
Right. Yes,
but you are
definitely.
a bird enthusiast.
Enthusiast, absolutely.
Okay,
I every morning I wake up to see what's at the feeders, what's on the fountain. Yesterday morning, a hummingbird was dropping down into the fountain like that on the edge and just getting it and shaking and hitting it again. And so, I'm an absolute enthusiast. I mean, you can't be here and not be, or your mom's backyard or even her front yard, because we've done a lot of work on those things. So but to get the birds coming.
Ron, you may not know this, but we've actually mentioned you a few different times on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Need all the help we can get.
Because we have done a couple episodes about birds. Well, actually, no, we just talked about them in the introduction. And Mom really just goes on and on and on and on and on about her birds. And we talked about how this gentleman came and did a whole site survey and set her up for success. Well, listeners, this is Ron. This is the man. So, and for those of y'all who are on Patreon with us, in the bonus, we're going to chat with Ron a little bit more in depth about exactly what those consultations look like and kind of what you look for. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we're going to keep asking Ron some questions. Okay. So for someone who honestly is kind of oblivious to birds, because will say I used to be one of those people. Birds just didn't really do it for me. I
Right.
wasn't really interested in them. I actually have gotten attacked twice by a bird. So I was actually kind of anti-bird for a while. I know. I think it is once in Mexico. Do you remember that,
Mm-hmm.
Mom?
Yeah.
And the second time in Sydney, Australia. So different ends of the earth. But I think I was just walking underneath a tree
A nest.
during nesting time,
Yeah.
and I just got like attacked. It was scary.
You have great nesting hair.
I have,
Well,
yeah.
that's
Maybe
right.
they were coming from my hair.
I'm sure they were.
That's
If I were a
probably-
bird, I'd want to nest in that fluff of hair.
I know. That is probably it. And now I'm a huge bird fan. We don't have as much of a setup as my mom at my house, but we have feeders. We actually took a nest that fell out of our tree to Rogers Wildlife a
Okay.
couple weeks ago. We've seen blue jay fledglings learn to fly in our yard. It's just been great. But for someone who is kind of oblivious to birds, what would you say to them in terms of why it's so important to support birds with your garden and give them some extra food and water? Like, why even care, I guess is the question.
Well, people care about a lot of things. Obviously, the care of children, the care of family, etc. Um, way it started for me was again, I was working pretty much on airplanes and coming in because I was a national accounts manager, and so I would come in usually on a Thursday afternoon and hit the back porch and just relax because we had a waterfall out there, and it was just so nice to enjoy that peace and quiet. And of 3 days on the road, usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the road. But to come back, and so when my mom bought the stuff for me and set it out there, I lived on Sherrill Park Golf Course, and so lots of water, lots of birds, lots of open area.
Mhm.
So everything from bluebirds, from all the other kind of stuff. But anyway, so it was more of a relaxing kind of thing for me. I mean, obviously, there's lots of importance to do for the birds, but really, backyard bird feeding is about you. It's not about a bird. The bird is going to make it with or without you. Let's be realistic. This is about you. This is bringing the birds into your yard to being part of that nature. And so it's absolutely wonderful. Now, as far as what we can do for the birds, it's absolutely, the kill ratio is just astronomical. I think it's something like 50 million birds or something like that over 50 years. Or there's studies on this, even on sadly, I don't know them. I should. Even on the WBU website, Save the Songbirds, and it gives you a complete lab of ornithology. Just gone blank again. Study on this about what's happened from collisions with buildings during migration at night. Even Dallas is practicing lights out, which is absolutely phenomenal.
I didn't know they were doing that. Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Awesome.
Especially during migratory season.
Right.
Turn
It was
off
like
your night lights.
1st of April through was it 1st of June or something like the dates? Again, this is just terrible that I don't know these things. But the National Wildlife Federation, in working with the Texas Conservation, not association, but something, they've been working with the city of Dallas.
Okay.
And got them to do this. And it's just been absolutely wonderful. Cat kills, sadly, are a huge problem, feral cats, etc. I mean, that's what cats do. It's in their genetics, it's for hunting. And so while it might not be a food source, but it is a hunting thing. Mm-hmm. And so we're very careful where there's lots of underbrush and things like that. We want people to put their feeders out away from that so that there's no way to sneak up on the bird. Even though the cat may lay there and be perfectly still and the bird wouldn't see it. But at least you give them a fighting chance to do that. Certain applications you just can't do that, but we do our best to make that happen. But the importance for the birds, I don't know how many hawks we would actually see in the city if it wasn't for bird feeders. You know, in the beginning.
Really?
But yeah, because think about it, they're, you know, with their food source being so kind of a buffet, if you will, for like a Cooper's Hawk, for example, you know, and I don't like to think of it in that fashion, but you know, some of that nature, we would never see it
Mhm.
if it weren't for the feeders, you know, and so it's just, uh, I've just loved every minute of it. Then it became kind of a sport, you know, kind of a, I got this bird. How do I get this other bird? Well, I need another feeder, right?
Ron,
Obviously.
you've rubbed off on my
I
mom.
know, right? Well, you have to have a next feeder, right? And so now I've got, you know, these other birds coming in like, okay, well, what's that? Oh, that's an orange crowned warbler. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I got to get those. How do I do it? You know, I want more of that. So now I got to get bark butter and a bark butter feeder. I'm going to smear bark butter on the side of one of my trees or something, you know, just for that experience. So it comes down to the love of the nature. First of all, it was the relaxation.
Mhm.
Then it became the whoa, you know, stunning look at it and the beauty of them. I mean, a red-headed woodpecker, not red-bellied, but red-headed,
Mhm.
is a stunning bird. I mean, red-bellieds are beautiful too, but we see those every day. But when you see a solid red head with the black, the white, the black on his back, oh, it's just beautiful. It is just beautiful. And then so if you get into photography, which so many people who are into nature photography did it because they wanted to just remember what they saw.
Mhm.
Okay, because they didn't have the memory enough to say, oh, it had a black beak and yellow legs or whatever. Couldn't remember that. So you took a picture of it. And that's how some of those hobbyists began. So anyway, doing it for the birds, back to your original question, absolutely. You can do that by keeping them safe, keeping the anti-strike things on your windows, keeping the cats away, keeping your feeders out in the open. So there's numerous ways that we can teach you how to do that here.
But I know mom has so many questions she wants to ask, but I just wanted to follow up on your answer
Sure.
because she and I play tug of war on who actually gets to
Uh-huh.
ask things
Oh
all the
no, no
time.
worry, no worry.
But I just wanted to say how much I loved your answer and how you reframed it because so many times, and I do this all the time, so I'm speaking for myself, but so many times with environmentalism, we're always like, oh, how are we helping? How are we helping nature?
Yeah,
And it's all about, what can we do to quote unquote save the planet?
right.
And you just completely turned that around and said, like the birds are going to be fine, with or without you, but this is actually for you. This is to enjoy nature and bring nature into your space. And
Yes,
that's the magic of it. And so thank you for doing that and reminding us that, this is for us too. And having like cultivating ways to connect with nature and kind of foster that relationship. So
absolutely.
long
I
story
love it.
short, I loved your answer.
Oh well, thank you, thank you.
And I know during COVID, I watched my birds way too much.
Oh,
Way too much.
I mean, really, I couldn't be around people, so I would just stand at
100%.
my window or sit at my desk, where we are right now. I just look over to my left, and I get to see some of my bird feeders, and oh my gosh,
And she
it's
has her binoculars hanging on the
uh-huh,
door handle ready to go
uh-huh.
to, like, peer out.
Can I say, sadly, there's a pair upstairs, downstairs, on my desk, by the kitchen table.
I love it.
Yeah,
Y'all are
I
getting
kind of
your
got it. I kind of got it bad. I understand.
Well, you were talking about feeding the birds and whatnot. Can you tell us about bird seed and what should you be get feeding birds and what should you not be feeding birds? I mean, whenever I was a little girl, I had no idea you weren't supposed to feed chocolate to dogs. That's
Right,
good for them.
right.
So, tell us about what you can and cannot feed birds.
Well, if you think about it, it's a little bit like what do you feed yourself? Okay, so if and I take real quick, just kind of a knot, or it's less attractive to do this. But when you go down to like White Rock Lake, for example, and you
Hmm.
see the ducks and all that kind of fun stuff, well, yeah, it's a lot of fun to throw out the corn, that kind of thing. But it it literally has no nutritional value for the birds, right? It's just purely a starch. It's all it is. And so, perhaps some sunflower seeds. Now, it might take a few minutes for them to get used to that. Okay, I will say that, but perhaps something that's got a little bit of a protein, maybe some little bit of a fat, would be better for them. Um, to get them more nourished. I get it. It's fun. And we have lots of people on a Sunday afternoon drop through for, a 7-pound bag of corn to head down to the lake. That's okay. Have fun with it. But with corn, make sure I'm telling it for your listeners here, don't throw it in the water. Okay. Because corn really absorbs everything. And so you don't want all the nastiness in the water in the corn that they eat. So just keep it on the land. Okay. And I know kids want to just chunk it, and that handful's not going to hurt anything, but I'm just saying, try to keep it on the land. It works better. As far as the birds are concerned, everyone has their favorite. Every bird has their favorite seed, and it's all about manipulation. There's no hands involved here, so it's got to be something they can pick up, manipulate with their bill and with their tongue to be able to open it and to get that nutrition that their body is requiring. And so, black oil sunflower is the most generic sunflower or generic bird food there is. Okay. And you can get it anywhere, grocery store, Home Depot, us, for example. Obviously there's going to be quality differences, I believe, in that ours doesn't sit around. Sunflower seeds dry out. Okay. So that over time, and depending on which warehouse, et cetera, it's sitting in, it can dry out. And so the birds just simply won't eat it. And so you think, well, there was something wrong with that sunflower seed. No, it's just old. So, but with our stuff, you can always count that it won't be sitting on the shelf more than 2 weeks here, because we rotate it so quickly. We order every week. And so we're always rotating our seed through. So that's why we can always count on the good stuff. But some birds like millet. We've just had a migration of painted buntings, indigo buntings came through, and boy, did our phones light up again. I mean, it was just something that was just absolutely wonderful. People posting on Birds of Texas on Facebook, all of their painted buntings and indigo buntings and everything else that was coming through. Absolutely amazing birds. They love millet, so having it up in a tube feeder with maybe perhaps a cage around it to keep the big birds out. My mother has nesting indigos at her house. And the painted buntings showed up like 8 of them at a time for 2 days. And I'm so jealous, I want them at my house. But woodpeckers, blue jays, they're looking for something a little bit bigger. They're a bigger bird, right? So they want peanuts. They love the peanuts. Specifically, blue jays and crows, because they're both in the same family, they're cousins. But blue jays and crows love peanuts in the shell. It's their favorite. They'll come by. Now the crow is smart, so he'll look at the small one first and pop that back in his crow and keep getting the bigger one, then the bigger one, then the bigger one, until he literally can't put his beak down on the next peanut. So he may take 4 or 5 and then fly away and go cache them somewhere, store them. And so blue jays do the same thing, only they'll pick up one, but they'll shake it. And so if they can only get access to one, they'll take it. But if there's multiples to choose from, they pick them up and shake them. I don't know if it's a weight thing. I have no idea, what their criteria is. But then they'll take off. And so with my apologies to my former neighbor, who I used to live near in Plano, the blue jays were coming and picking up about 10 different peanuts and putting them in his gutter. And so I watched it. So they would take it and they'd grab it and, feel them out and all that kind of stuff, then take off, put it in the gutter and come back and get another one and do it over and over and over. So I know the poor guy's thinking, what did I do in the rain when all of a sudden he's getting all these, peanut shell casings all over the place? But
oh, well, small
yeah,
price to pay for the blue jay, I think.
Yeah, right.
I find a lot of peanut shells in my yard, and I don't have a feeder, Ron, that's for the peanuts with shells. I have the ones for the shelled peanuts. But I've always been, for the past few years, I was like, why am I finding all these peanut shells in my yard? Now I know one of my neighbors.
They're going up. Yeah, one of your neighbors has peanuts in the shell, and they're up in your trees because your trees are so awesome, right, all around the house to get that to eat. And so they go up there and, chill a little bit, have a couple of peanuts, and they don't really care where they drop it. Now, people will look and they'll say, okay, I had a peanut feeder. Won't the squirrels get it? Well, blue jays have a memory. Okay. So besides the crow's the smartest bird out there, right? Biggest brain, right? They can make tools. They can do all kinds of stuff. So blue jays, being their cousin, are what I always thought of as the second smartest bird out there. Well, they'll figure out what time of day you fill your feeders. They'll be there 5 minutes before you. And they will wait. Yeah. I heard dead silence one morning. Again, this house back out in Plano, I would always throw 3 handfuls out on the sidewalk. That's why that bird was coming and going. And then I put 3 more in a feeder, wreath feeder that I have. And the blue jays know you're coming. The squirrels can smell it, but they don't react as quickly as the blue jays and the crows do. So, but I went out one morning, it was just dead silent out there. Just eerie, like, Stephen King eerie, looking around like, why is it so quiet out here? So unusual. And just one crow went, caw, and I looked, and about half a block away, top of a tree, across the street, one crow let everybody know. And all this, man, within 5 minutes, the blue jays and the crows were everywhere eating those peanuts. So they let Bob be the watch, while they went and did something to do something else that morning. But yeah, it was just one caw. It's all it took, and they were all back to have their morning breakfast. So, but they're smart. They're very smart. And they say that if you feed like peanuts in the shell, or you're feeding the crows every day, that they will bring you something. Okay. Now, I don't know if it's just happenstance or what, but so far I have found the cap of a Sharpie, an entire Sharpie, and also an entire Sharpie, a piece of chalk, and there was one more thing. I can't remember what it is. But anyway, so I keep all of that outside on a table just to remind myself that, to whatever you find over in that area where I feed peanuts, I keep that. And just to see if indeed that's the case. And I'm hoping they'll bring me something shiny someday. That would be nice.
I love that. And just to clarify, for the peanuts with the shells,
yeah,
do you just spread them on the ground?
You can put them in a tray. I've got a tray feeder at home now. I do still put some on the ground. The crows seem to like the ground. They feel very safe there. Okay. And for the squirrels, I hook them up. So yeah, I know a guy that owns a bird store, or a bird seed store. So why not?
Why not? The squirrels can get some too.
Yeah, exactly. I got them blocked on all the other feeders. They can't get on it. So I throw some peanuts out there. Give them a little love.
Brianna wants to ask you something, but I just gave her the hairy eyeball. Okay, you were talking about squirrels, and so many people get agitated by squirrels. Oh, I mean, a lot of my customers are agitated by squirrels in their, what they do with. Well, they don't do that much to the plants, but anyway, I live in harmony with my squirrels, and I have learned that my bird feeders that don't have that protector on it,
the baffle,
the baffle, that I just put safflower seed in those, and the squirrels don't like them. But talk to us about embracing the squirrels and caring for them and not disliking them. I mean, I think they're cute.
I love that my mom's like cornering you into the right answer. Right?
I know, right? There's only one correct answer here. So.
Tell us how we should all like the squirrels. How about Ron? Tell us your thoughts on squirrels.
But he thinks like I do, I'm sure.
Well, for entertainment's sake, I mean, there's nothing better. I mean, they are funny. They do, and they're amazing. I got Olympians, at my house, so they can leap tall buildings. It's amazing. I'm not a fan of the squirrels on the feeder. You can feed squirrels. That's okay. That's fine. Stuff on the ground, even ground feeders. We've got them. Even the ones out in your front yard, they can get in those. So yeah, we could put something in there for them, and it's fine. Sunflower seeds are their favorite. Okay. People want to put corn out for them, and corn is last resort. Okay. They'll eat it, but they got taste buds. Okay. Birds tend not to, but squirrels do. So corn is kind of like Spam. During the cold, you would definitely say, well, that's the last thing in the pantry and I ain't going outside, so I'm going to fry it up and eat it, right? Well, that's kind of what corn is, right? Okay. So, but put sunflower seeds out there and you have a friend forever. My mother has probably 3 squirrel feeders that she's got, strapped to the trees, and
really,
yeah, and they fill them up every day with sunflower seeds. And they've had a problem with raccoons coming up the trees and lifting the plastic out. And
Oh,
so
wow.
there's a front piece that has plastic on it, and they just lift it out, and all the seed comes pouring to the ground. And so she's been having a running war with raccoons at her house. Um,
And
but
why
they,
did you
but
say
so some people it's just a love hate with the squirrels. And so, um, that's understandable. It's understandable. They can do damage to some bird feeders, some awfully expensive bird feeders,
Mm,
that they're chewing up. Fortunately, with most of our stuff, it's lifetime warranted. So, squirrel chews it up, bring it on back in. We'll fix it for you.
okay. So that's why I was gonna ask, why did you say you're not a huge fan of the squirrels on the feeders? It's because
Right.
of
It's the damage. It's the
okay.
damage that's done. And, a cardinal is not going to fight for space at a feeder,
Mhm.
and so we want to put something out there that they can get to. They're very fairly shy birds. And so we want to make sure that they can get to something specifically for them. And they like sunflower and safflower, and so while we're doing the safflower um, at your mom's house, and that's a great solution. Uh, but some people like them, others don't. I understand, but just not on my feeders. They can eat everything on the ground. I'm all for it. I got no mess everywhere. I've got, peanuts on the ground that I throw out. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with them.
You gotta draw the line somewhere,
Well,
Ron.
Yeah, just not on the feeders.
I
Yeah.
don't. Well, you don't want squirrels on your feeders. I don't want squirrels in my greenhouse.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that
I've seen your greenhouse. I understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
would really upset me.
yeah,
It's interesting that you say that cardinals are shy birds because I don't know much about specific behaviors of birds, but we have been observing birds in our yard recently, as I was mentioning. And when the blue jay mom and dad were protecting their little fledgling who was learning how to fly, we noticed that this cardinal kept chasing them like really aggressively. Like and we did a little bit of
wow,
research and what we found out was that it's typically the other way around. It's typically blue jays bullying other birds. But I'm telling you, time and time again, this cardinal kept chasing them away from the tree. And just yesterday, we saw a cardinal's nest in our tree.
there you go.
So
That's why.
that's why. That's
Hmm.
why. So we've gotten to
Yeah.
observe some of the cardinal blue jay interactions in our yard, and that's been super fun. Um, Okay, so Ron, for people who are wanting to get started, they're
Yeah.
listening to you, they're like, wow, this guy's super cool. He's getting us into the birds here. What are some simple, like top 3 first steps that you recommend for people who are just wanting to kind of dip their toes into the bird enthusiast world?
it- get some seed that's compatible with the ground is the ultimate bird feeder, right? So that's where all seed ends up sooner or later, right? In the natural place for it. So I would say uh, deluxe blend, no mess DP, some of the stuff that we have here in the store is great ground feeder food. Cardinals are ground feeders. All the sparrows, doves are all ground feeders. If you have 0 trees, you're always going to have sparrows, doves, and cardinals, right? Because that's
Mhm.
just ground feeding birds. Anything that is a natural, straight down kind of
Mhm.
thing. Uh, so you can always just get started there. Your first bird feeder should always be something with a tray, something that's flat, something with large perches on it, something like that, so that the bigger birds can get on it. All right. A cardinal, like I said, just from their size, if you look at I'm sorry, I don't have a tube feeder handy, but if you just did a tube feeder and you say, okay, get this little perch rod sticking out. Well, the cardinal, when they perch on it here, their head's up here, the little holes over here. So
Mhm.
it's like they have to hit, kind of like eating from your hip. You'll do it if you have to. You'll figure out a way, but it's not comfortable.
That makes
So
so much sense.
right? Exactly. Listen, it's not rocket science what we do. Okay, so I can do it. That tells you. So, but a platform feeder, just a flat tray, if you will, a tube feeder with a small tray on the bottom of it. Feeders with large perches on there, perhaps squared off perches on some of our squirrel-proof feeders. Um, those things are how the birds feed. One feeder, always use a blend. Let the biggest bird win. Okay. Anyone can eat from the tray. Like I said, anyone can eat from the ground. But then we have perching birds, which we would call that, and we have clinging. All right, birds that get their food from the side of a tree. So blue jays, woodpeckers, titmice, chickadees, nuthatches, these birds can actually eat from stuff that's stuck behind the bark of trees. So
Mhm.
you'll see them hunting up and down the trees for food. Okay. So now we have perching birds and clinging birds. That is the entire repertoire of seed eating birds. Okay. Simple. So we have a tray over here with safflower in it.
Mhm.
We have a vertical feeder with peanuts in it. Anything that can't cling likes safflower. Anything that doesn't like safflower can cling to the side of the feeder. They're
Mm.
perfectly complementary. So two feeders. I'm a minimalist on feeders. It doesn't seem like it. I understand. I mean, we have hundreds to choose from, but really keeping it minimal keeps you coming to the store, right?
Yeah.
It keeps it interesting. So if you do one bag of seed in 7 feeders, or that's fun, yeah, but I think you'll get bored from
Yeah.
that. And so you can start seeing the differences. So now we've gone from our tray feeder with a blend. Now we're doing 2 feeders. We got a peanut feeder, so we put safflower there, peanuts there. Now we're moving on to what? Suet, right? It's the next thing. So each one of these items as we go is going to have less birds coming to it. All right,
Mm.
that's why we don't start with a suet feeder. It would get
Yeah.
really boring really quick and you'd never come back. Okay. So we want the one that gets the most birds first, then second, and then third. So we move through the feeders. Um, for example, Oriole feeders. Okay. They're really great for 1 month of the year, and that's August. I mean, you put Oriole feeders out for that southern migration of Orioles coming down from Wisconsin. They have been fed grape jelly and oranges all summer long. They are in love with it. And anything they can get on the way back, on the way south, is definitely on their path.
Mm.
I had 2 female Baltimore Orioles hitting the water last year, and I couldn't figure out why they were coming in my yard because I didn't have anything out for them. But I live in Arlington, and the grapevines over there are insane. They grow all over fences, up trees, you name it. Well, the only thing we figure is the Orioles were coming after the
The
grapes
grapes. Yeah.
and coming to my fountain for water and going back and forth. So I saw the male on one weekend, and then the following weekend was 2 females that made about a
Oh.
dozen trips to and from the fountain. And so I was just like, oh my God, I can't leave the window. Talking about bird enthusiast again, something new in the yard. And I'm just like, oh my God. So yeah, we just do it by start with the feeder type and think logically. Okay. Something with a flat surface. So a tray on a feeder, or a tray feeder, or just the ground. Okay. That's how to get started. That's the best way.
And you just mentioned something that's so important that I think a lot of people don't think about is a water source.
Water source. Absolutely. Absolutely. National Wildlife Federation, I'll give them a little plug there because they always say um, food, water, a place to raise their young, so houses,
Mhm.
and shelter, so trees, bushes, that kind of thing. So 4 things, and you can get your yard certified by National Wildlife Federation.
Yeah.
And so it is the coolest little program ever. So anyway, just a thought. And so we can play together on this one. And so you take care of the shelter, and I'll take care of the food and the water.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned birdhouses.
Yeah.
That's something I've never done. And tell us about, should we be providing birdhouses, or if we just have lots of shrubs? I mean, I find bird nests in my shrubs.
Mhm.
And so tell us about birdhouses.
Well, and my husband built 2, and they have yet to be used. And I don't know if we built the wrong. He did a lot of research, but yeah, they look cute.
Okay. I will say this, 2 different houses, one in Garland and now over in Arlington. And each time it took 3 years for the birds to use my birdhouse. I
Okay.
will say, yeah, absolutely, that's happened. Now, this year, I was fortunate enough to get a Bewick's wren. Now, when we know Carolina wrens are pretty common, but Bewick's wren was very cool, a way different song, and it just posed every time it sang for me, and I fell in love with them. Well, uh, my handyman had to come do some work at the house. Okay, so he had to tape down the birdhouse, and I'm like, oh, I just got this bird in it. No, no,
Oh
no.
no.
Well, he put it on my charcoal grill, and did his work, and getting parts, etc. took, a couple of weeks to get the whole thing done. And so he said, "You want me to put the birdhouse back up?" I said, "No, I think she's still using it." And so it sat on my grill. And then just this past weekend, I saw three little wrens following mom around, getting suet out of the suet feeder. And so I'm just like, yay, success. But 3 years in both places is what it took to actually get birds to use the house. It has to be consistent. It has to be secure. Okay, so it's not moving around. I know a lot of people put decorative houses and just hang them on a hook, right? Well, if the house does this, you wouldn't want to live in it, when it does like this. Now, it can swing one way, kind of like a branch. Branches move, so it's okay. It can go like this, but it can't do this. Can't be circular. Okay.
What if it's placed really close to one of the feeders? Is that a problem?
I would probably space that away from that, because that's more of a predators are nearby. And those blue jays that you talked about, they can be kind of mean to nests. And so you want to try to keep that separate. All of mine are at least 20 feet away from feeders easily. Yeah.
Okay, that might be
rule.
that we might have to move one of our houses because it looks really cute next to the feeder. But now that you're making think bird,
Yeah.
That's actually working.
Right.
And how do you get people started identifying birds? I know that's been an issue for me. It's like, oh, there's one of my friends again, but I don't know that friend's name. And I have a little guide just right on my desk. But what ways do you recommend that people learn how to identify their birds?
The simplest thing, 2+2 flashcards, right? It was the same thing, real way we learned it way back when. And it's the same thing. So the little flashcard that we have, it's a fold out that you can stick in your back pocket. You can take it birding. I mean, so it is a great source. I don't know, it's like $8 or $9, whatever, and you can have that. It's laminated, so you can actually get an oil pen and circle what you've seen in your yard. But it makes it very quick. Especially the ones of North Texas. There you go. That's the one. Birds of North Texas.
Ron,
Fantastic.
Got a fan over here.
Yeah. So you just open it up. Now, some of the harder things, it's not all inclusive. Okay, it can be very difficult when you really start to try to identify the difference between perhaps a song and a Harris sparrow. So that's not what that guide's for. That guide is to go, what is that? And look over the top of it. Yeah, the cardinal. Hey, it's a female cardinal. What do you know? I didn't know they were brown with this beautiful top knot, And so, but I would say that's probably the best way. But, any love of nature, you tend to start just learning it. You won't believe how many people call blue jays bluebirds and redbirds. It's just, so you'll have to study the reason why it's called a northern cardinal.
We'll put that on the list. Mom, that's on your list. You're the bird gal.
There are 7 cardinals in the Americas.
Really?
7, north, central to south. And so I should say north, central to south. 7 cardinals. Ours is the more northern. So it's the northern cardinal. Oh. So yeah, you go down to Central America and South America, there'll be others. But anyway, that's just a little trivia for you.
I love that.
Yep. That's why it's called a northern cardinal.
We are going to have to start wrapping it up, Mom. But I want to touch on one final question before Mom asks her question that she asks all of our guests. But it's about hummingbirds and hummingbird feeders. And I think this is my personal uninformed bias, but I want you to inform us. I feel as though it's better to plant native plants that hummingbirds like as opposed to giving them fake sugar. I don't know. I feel strange about fake sugar as opposed to seeds that you feed birds. And that might be I know that's probably an uninformed bias. So please tell us about hummingbirds and hummingbird feeders specifically, and about that mixture and what's good, and is there something that's not good to feed them, and are they okay with just normal sugar?
And let me just say one thing. you're not really wanting to say fake sugar, right? You want to
Oh,
say
yeah.
fake nectar
Nectar. Yes, exactly. Fake,
Oh, okay.
made
like
out of
like a
sugar.
man-made nectar out of sugar.
Right. Right.
I'm not thinking Splenda here.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Mom.
All right. So I love plants in the yard. I think that's a phenomenal way to draw hummingbirds. I mean, when the bird is flying by your yard, are you going to see a, a 3 foot tall salvia that has,
Yes.
blown out to 5 foot wide? Yeah, you're going to see that a lot faster than some small hummingbird feeder tucked up under the eave of your house.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to see that. That's going to draw them to the yard. The hummingbird feeder draws them to the window. Okay. So they're going to stop to find whatever's getting their attention in the yard. And that could be the Garanetica, it could be the any of the salvia families, Turk's cap, you name it, all the ones that they absolutely love, acanthus, all the other wonderful plants for hummingbirds. But that didn't get them to the window. Now, this bird is what, 3 inches tall, 2.5, 3 inches tall. These contacts are not going to let me see that bird out there on the salvia. Okay. It's not going to happen. So bringing them up to the window while I'm working, from home is just absolutely outstanding. I've got people that have hummingbird feeders on suction cup to the window now. And they're just like, I can't get any work done in the, the latter part of July all the way through the end of September because the hummingbirds are all over this thing and they're so fascinating to watch. So that's one thing. So that's the difference between the plant and the feeder and their objective, if and what they're doing. Okay. A 4-to-1 mixture of white table sugar to water is the closest stimulation to the plant that they're eating from. Okay. As far as that water to sugar ratio, that sweetness that they're getting, that is able to metabolize in their bodies for energy. All right. They also, in the spring, like when they just came through in March, guess what? There was no salvia. There was no Turk's cap. There was nothing to eat. All that stuff died to the ground.
Yeah.
So even the betony, which is the earliest blooming plant for hummingbirds, none. Yeah. So putting the feeders out was critical to the birds to even get back to the north where they go for nesting. All right. So my feeder out, I had one on March the 22nd. A bird hit the feeder only for a day or two. That was all right. That's all it needed. It kept moving. So that was the migratory pattern going north. Now coming south is when we see the vast majority of our hummingbirds. Now that'll be from about mid-July. We say July 4th because everybody can remember that. But really it's more 15th-ish through the end of September. That's our season. So the birds like a beeline north to get to their favorite hunting grounds and their favorite nesting grounds, but then they kind of lollygag coming south, right? Fattening up before hopping the Gulf. So that's the part where we get to see them the most. And so I would say, if you're not into the feed versus reward thing, the reward being you get to see the bird, if you're high maintenance on that aspect of it, I'd probably say don't worry about the northern migration. Hit them on the south. Now this year being different, that was the one different thing. It was an extraordinary winter.
Yeah,
so
it was.
Yeah,
that was a good word for it. Extraordinary.
Extraordinary. -3. Yeah. We're not made for that here.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you've changed my mind on hummingbird feeders.
Well, good. Get one, put it by the window, and enjoy. And just think of me every time you see one.
I have one. I just haven't done anything with it.
In fact, I've given you mine. Can I have one back?
Yeah, right.
Takesies, no takesies, backsies. Actually, all of my feeders were hand-me-downs from Mom and friends.
And one of my customers.
Yeah. So that's great.
And I wanted to say that when I lived in Tampico, Mexico, I had this dear friend who had a Japanese maple in a courtyard in the middle of his house. And during, I guess it'd be the winter, this one little hummingbird would sleep on this one limb of his Japanese maple. Every night would come and sleep there, and you could just, we could walk up to it and look at it through the window. And
Sure. They almost go comatose. The bird almost goes comatose overnight to slow its heart. And
Oh.
so you could, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the end of your story there, but yeah, even going down to see them when they migrate north and come across the Gulf, down on like High Island and places just to the east of near Beaumont,
Uh-huh.
along the coast, you can just see them just 2 feet away because they have just flown across what is huge distance, and they are shut down. They are done. And so, yeah, they're just most like you can get right a foot away from them
That's
and
amazing.
take pictures and do everything else. Yeah. So yeah, but it's just you're right. That bird was sleeping, and it was just comatose. It's gone. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
great time to take pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, Mom, I'm the timekeeper. Got to wrap it up. Unfortunately, it's
Okay.
the last question
Oh,
before we let Ron go.
okay, Ron, the question we ask everyone, what do you think is the most important thing each individual can do to help reverse global warming and climate change?
Whew, not a subject I am well versed in. Uh
And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. The
Yeah.
last person we asked said, "Whoa, that question singed my nose hairs."
that's one way to put it. Wow, definitely was not ready for that one. Um the I am a huge solar power fan.
Yeah.
And so our new store, our full intent is to have a full array of solar panels on top of that thing,
Nice.
so that we can start to reduce the carbon footprint of our store. We have changed. When I first got here, we had halogen light bulbs. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was burning up in this store. We've since, newest air conditioners, highest SEER rating. All of these are now LEDs, even including this one above my head here. So I would say that each person can do their part, even on a retail scale,
Mhm.
where I've had an $1,800 electric bill. So you can imagine what the juice I was using.
Yeah.
And so down to now, call it 300 or 400 a month. Now for a
Oh,
retail
nice.
store that on the south end of a shopping center is definitely gets quite a lot of heat.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think everybody can do. I can think they can all do their part, even if it's just hey, one light bulb from Home Depot.
Yeah.
Get that one LED light bulb. I don't think you can buy an incandescent anymore.
Which is a good
So
thing.
I know, right? And so yeah, it just comes down to doing your part. If it's just one little part at a time.
Yeah, I love it. So we get that's a lot of the answers that we get, Ron. So you were prepared. See, you
Yeah.
even know
No, no,
carbon
no, no. You
footprint.
caught me just totally blind on this one. It was like,
And by the way, I used to be in the solar world, and I designed and sold systems, both residential and commercial. So if you need a friend to help you like review proposals or anything and give you an insider's tip, I'm happy to do that.
I just might take you up on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please do. Please do. Well, Ron, before we let you go, we would love for you to tell people how to connect with you and your store. And I know we were chatting earlier. You have Instagram at WBU Dallas East, but tell us how else people can connect with y'all.
Facebook, obviously, at Wild Birds Unlimited of East Dallas. You can look us up that way. Our phone number here, of course, with any questions that you have, 214-821-7400. Our staff here is well versed in pretty much all bird questions. And
Awesome.
so, we'll be glad to try to help any way we can.
Awesome. And for our listeners, the Wild Birds Unlimited website is wbu.com. And Ron's location specifically is wbu.com/East Dallas. So you can also go there for all the
Correct.
info. Ron, thank you again so much. After talking to our guests, I become like a fan of a whole new topic. I've converted a whole area of my yard into a blackland prairie strip. We've done like all these things. And now I think we're going to go home and add more bird feeders and become more of a bird enthusiast than I already was. So thank you so much for your
Well,
time.
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge and expertise with us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.